strategy. Does anybody have anything else? Has anybody else faced that where they have someone kind of telling them that sort of thing? Family members where you start believing it? Mm-hmm. And are there any other strategies you think, other than really knowing you need to change how you think? It's hard to sometimes step back when you've got a lot of people telling you the same thing. But
I was going to say, I think it's especially hard when those people are so close to you. You know, look to them so highly with, you know, friends and close family. And when they say things like that, it kind of just pushes you further into the depression.
I just shut down when that happens and just walk away. And yeah, it's very difficult.
very difficult.
Don't want to share with anyone anymore if they're going to react like that.
It makes it very difficult to put yourself out there and be vulnerable, which was one of the things we talked about. You know, to make change, sometimes you have to put yourself out there to be vulnerable, and then when you get shot down, that makes it very difficult to try and make those steps. So I think that knowing that, like Amy had said, we've got this group here that you guys can turn to when anything like that happens, and that you guys have all experienced similar situations. So if something happens and you're feeling down and you're just like, I'm not sure what to do, you could reach out to someone in this group if you can't find someone else. But I think most of us, even if we have a friend maybe who doesn't understand, we've got someone else. I know Miranda has talked about her mom before, being very supportive for her. So finding, you know, different people that you can go to for maybe different areas or different aspects, that might be helpful. So a support group isn't always going to just be one person, because that person might not always be there for us, but finding multiple layers of support might be helpful.
This was thinking back, Amy, when you mentioned about offering to educate somebody. I think now that, you know, looking at positive ways that these fears and worries can trigger us to positive behaviors and actions, maybe we can offer that to people, you know, to educate them on what these positive triggers are, and to help remind us, you know, maybe a safe interaction that they can just say to us, so what's a positive trigger out of this? And that's something that we would agree that we wouldn't get mad, you know, if they say that, you know, that it would be safe for them, but then they also know kind of what we're working on. So if somebody's saying get over it, instead of saying get over it, maybe we could just help them rephrase it to say what's a positive trigger that you can look at for this.
That's a great idea. So educate the people around us to know the ways that we're going to be able to respond to the way that they talk to us. That sounds good. Do we have any other comments or questions about the activity for today? I feel like you guys really were able to take a lot of the information that we had on last week's session, and then even the changing your thinking and looking at the different ways to think about a trigger and really change some of those fears and worries that would trigger your depression. And we can go over some of the other ones at a later time. Okay, so we're going to do our wrap-up. So for today, we're going to look at some of the things that we talked about, and I have a sheet for you. This is kind of part of your homework assignment that can go into your folder. And what I would like you to do is, I'd like you to have this sheet and take it home, and you can really look to see if there are things that are happening in your day-to-day life, if there's anything that you feel like is kind of triggering you, and those fears or worries are starting to trigger those depression ideas or thoughts, situations at all, and maybe see if there's any of these that you can use, and if so, you can jot those down here, or if there's any other words that you feel like would be beneficial, you could jot those down here. That way next week we can come back and we can start out by adding some words to our list of triggers, the information we have on that. So, but before we end today's session, I'd just like to see how people feel the group went today. Did you feel like some of these were beneficial or helpful, or you could see yourself using these?
It was very beneficial to me. I think it'll be good to, especially having this handout of the triggers too, to remind me. Yeah, I think that will work well for my strategies, maybe even picking one word from that to work on.
Okay, good.
I agree with Danielle. I think, everyone's comments and suggestions were very helpful for me. I like Amy's positive affirmations. I think that would be very beneficial to start my day off on the right foot with a positive affirmation that I can, continue my positive self-talk throughout the day.
Were there areas that maybe you feel like you would like covered more, or you didn't feel like that we touched on that you would like addressed for this session?
I think for me, and I don't know if it's just my thinking, but it's just, everyone's just so positive. Like I don't, with me, that's not ingrained right now. So to just be positive, and I don't know if it's just because we're in the classroom and but it's like, I'm not positive today. Like, I don't even think positive today. So, and I just think like some of the things like, Danielle said or whatever, it doesn't make sense to me. Like some things people say are stupid. Why? I mean, you should just get over it. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just ingrained thoughts. And I don't know how to process it right now.
Okay, so was there something in particular that you wanted to ask about? Or a certain area that you felt you weren't understanding?
No, it's just that I'm not in that positive state. Right? It's not normal for me to just be positive all the time.
Okay.
Or, I mean, I know we need to change our thinking, but it's just not.
It's difficult, and it will take time, and it will take practice, and it will take a lot of those, maybe doing the different things that we've talked about, that affirmation and starting your morning off that way. Because if it is ingrained, if it is something that you've heard over and over and over again, or we've talked about the support systems, if it's a support system where you're hearing it over and over again, it's going to take a while for you to be able to come out of that. So if it's something where you're struggling with finding ways to be positive, I've heard a lot of different other suggestions that can help. And I know it sounds like everything's really positive, but it's really going to be something where it's just reaching out, having someone reach out to you, or reaching out to somebody and just being like, I'm just not feeling it today, and it's okay to say that. It's okay to tell somebody, I'm having an off day, I'm struggling today, that's not going to work today. But handle it in a nice way where you're being, respectful or appropriate, but just the words and letting people know, like, this is not, it's not what you're saying or what you're doing or whatever. I'm just having an off day. Nothing you say or do is going to really work today, but, I know Danielle had talked about possibly working with people on telling them ways that you could, that they could help you. So, I think you would
Well,
think
and
about that.
I just appreciate your honesty, because, when I walk in here, it's kind of like when I walk into a classroom for our courses that we have right now, and I know what's expected of me when I walk in there that day, and I can compartmentalize and be there for that moment, and that's kind of what I'm doing when I walk into this room too, because I don't know you guys that well yet, and so, but I feel the same way you do, that it's like, yeah, these are good, and I'm trying to think this way, but when I leave here, it's hard to make it happen. That's why my to-do list, got set aside, is because then life happens, and how do you actually put this into place? So I appreciate that you ask more questions, and, this all sounds great here, kind of like it looks good on paper, but how do we make this work? So I thank you. I appreciate that.
And I think that really helps the group feel like this is a safe place where you can come and share those feelings. This is a place where you can come and say, I'm not perfect, everything's not going great, I need help here. And that's the whole point of coming together and trying to share some of these strategies, is to find out maybe Miranda's doing something that, is working for her, it's not quite working, and we can talk about some ways that it would work, and you hear it and go, oh, that might be something that I could try, and just to get those ideas and have somebody else who's going through similar situations share their experiences.
I see where Angela's coming from. I mean, I'm definitely not anywhere near where I want to be. I'm constantly arguing with myself in my head, negative thoughts, and trying to change them to positive, and it's a slow process, and you have to start small. I think the positive affirmations, even if you use one every day for a week or for a month or however long it takes you to, really believe that positive self-talk, it's steps. You just have to take it slow. I was thinking too, instead of actually writing something down with our technology now, maybe putting some sort of reminder in our cell phones that goes off every morning when you wake up. You don't even have to think about it then. You wake up every morning and there's this positive message telling me, today's going to be an awesome day, you're a great person.
I like what Miranda said with using technology, because our classes are all really busy. We've got busy schedules. I know a lot of us are working and have families, so having something that's just going to come up automatically might be really good. I also liked your idea on writing something out, a verse or a phrase on a card. And I think I'm going to try to do that too, so that I actually have something physical that I can look at, and I'm going to focus on the word cue. So if something happens that triggers my depression, I'm going to use that as a cue to look at that card. Thanks for that, sharing that idea.
Great, thank you for your examples. I feel like you guys were able to come up with a lot of really great strategies to share with each other. And I feel like a lot of those strategies are ones that you guys could use in your day-to-day life to try and help, especially with the positive thinking and the changing your thinking that we've talked about when you feel those triggers come into place. So what I would like for you guys to do is apply one of these, one of the examples that we have on here to your daily life, and then if you would just write something down about it, and then we'll share those specific examples next week when we come to the next week's session. And we can even pull up the poster again and add any other words if there's other words you think maybe would help you other than like call to action or anything. So if there's other things that are helping you, can come and we'll share that, and we can add that to our poster also. Just apply those strategies, and I feel like you guys did a great job. I think that will be it for this week's session. There are snacks at the back table if you guys would like those, and I will see you all next week.
Thank you.